Welcome to another edition of Park Talk Podcast, the official podcast of the Naperville Park District. Thank you for joining me for the final episode of this year's State of the Park District podcast, titled Initiatives That Shape the District's Future. I'm pleased to welcome back Executive Director Brad Wilson and Director of Planning Eric Schutz. We recently recorded Episode 5, focusing on 2025 district goals, which was a prelude to this discussion. I'm also happy to welcome Director of Recreation and Facilities, Andrea Coates, to add to this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
As I mentioned in the prior episode, one of our main district goals last year was focused on completing an assessment of our current indoor space needs. This initiative involved a sizable contingent of staff, board members, and community members and spanned much of 2024. Brad, would you begin by providing some history and background on this project and explain why assessing indoor space is so critical for our organization right now?
Sure. As I've mentioned in previous episodes that where we talked about participation within programs and at our facilities. And that's something over the course of 2022, 2023, we really saw tremendous growth in overall participation and interest in the community to participate in Park District programs. And that's continued through 2024. In fact, the last 2 years, 2023 and 24, have been record years for the Park District with program participation and just overall use of Park District facilities.
Right.
With that comes the challenges.
Sure.
And that's where we've really seen the challenges with being able to provide enough space to accommodate all who want to participate in the programs. So we've had the significant wait lists in our youth basketball programs, gymnastics, open gym, as well as group fitness programs, very high demands there. So this report and assessment was really critical for the Park District to evaluate our existing facilities, talk with our residents, gather feedback about what they would like to see as far as future indoor recreation space, and develop really that roadmap or plan that can assist both the staff as well as the Park District Board with addressing this into the future. And so that's what we did much throughout 2024. And now in 2025, we'll begin working through the recommendations from that plan and then continuing to engage with the community and further refining what the future of indoor recreation space might look like.
That's a tall order. It's a lot to tackle. And I will say that from the staff perspective, just seeing in 2024, the interest in the community of people to participating in the surveys and the focus groups and everything that we put out there to try to get feedback. I mean, that was a great initiative, and it was great to see that interest.
We had a tremendous response, and we had a number of different opportunities for residents to provide their feedback through focus groups. We had key leader interviews. We had surveys that were conducted, open houses, and it really was wonderful to be able to speak with so many residents and to gather their thoughts and opinions on indoor recreation space in the Park District and what they would like to see.
Right. Andrea, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are some of the challenges that you and your staff experience with the district's current indoor space issues?
Well, I think our biggest challenge right now is the high demand for certain programs,
Right.
And we need certain spaces for those programs. As Brad mentioned, we have large wait lists for both basketball and gymnastics. Both programs require gymnasium space, which we're lacking. Our group fitness classes continue to reach capacity. And they too need specialized spaces. The other area that continues to be in high demand is our fitness center. Right now we have over 8,000 members utilizing this space, and we do not expect to see a decline in this anytime soon, especially with the increase in the industry health and wellness throughout the country. We also have a lack of indoor swimming space. Currently we only have Centennial Beach.
Which is a seasonal facility.
Yes, which is very seasonal.
Right.
So we rely completely on the high schools for pool space. And unfortunately, as you know, they have high demands with their own program. So there's limited availability there. Another challenge that we hear about from our residents is the distance that they have to travel to get to some of our programs. The Fort Hill Activity Center is our only facility that has large gymnasium spaces, and it is located on the north side of town. So over the years, we have been extremely lucky to work with School District 203 and 204 on shared spaces. But as we know, they're only getting busier and they need their space to accommodate as well. So
Right.
those are our biggest challenges right now.
Okay, that's understandable. Eric, can you explain how the extensive process with the indoor recreation space needs assessment, how that all unfolded?
Absolutely. So starting first and foremost, we looked at our key organizational documents like our master plan, strategic plan, as well as the 2022 community interest and opinion surveys. Next, we want to really take a deep dive into, with respect to the extensive process, demographics and trends. So we want to better understand the makeup of the population, as well as recreational trends that we're seeing out there with Andrea and her team. Some of the demographic data that we collected that was very important that we'd like to mention as part of today is we noticed there's definitely a growing population within the city of Naperville. And it's so very important that we invest and develop and maintain programs and recreational amenities, indoor recreational amenities and offerings for the increase in population. But also we have an aging population here in Naperville at this time. So the 55 plus population is growing more than ever. And it's very important that we provide recreational amenities such as aquatic type offerings, whether it's like therapeutic pools or lap lane swimming, or even like fitness offerings, to make sure that our entire population, including this 55 plus group, they're healthy. And it's aligned with our health and wellness focused mission.
And one thing I was just going to mention, too, that I think is important with regard to the older adults is we're seeing a trend, specifically in Naperville and probably other areas as well, of aging in place. So I think that that's really why we're seeing the impacts that we're seeing as far as what the community is looking for us to offer.
Yes, we hear so often that residents, they get to the point of retirement and they can really go anywhere they want and to retire, and they prefer to be
Stay
here
yeah.
in Naperville because of all the benefits, and in this case Parks and Recreation that's offered to them. They love it and they grew up with it. So it's something that's really special. And also we want to talk about with an increasing diversity, something we should always be very flexible to reach out to various groups and make sure we're providing the right kind of recreation programs, but also that we have a pulse on those various groups within our community. Also, with respect to the process, we talked about similar providers, and we analyzed providers within the Naperville Park District jurisdiction, and we looked at about a 12-mile radius, and there was over 50 providers in that area, and we focus on the core type offerings of fitness, indoor aquatics, gym, turf, and event space, as well as tennis and pickleball. And what was so interesting is once we mapped all that, we found gaps in service. And so like when you look forward of where, if there's ever a need or an interest for more indoor recreation for a certain type of recreational amenity, where can that be provided in the community? Or maybe there's an opportunity for a partnership type scenario. So that was the next step in the process. And then throughout this entire extensive process for formulating the assessment, community input was, and as mentioned earlier in this podcast. And so we just want to talk a little bit by the numbers and what we provided for gathering the input. We had key leader interviews. We had focus group sessions. We had statistically significant survey, as well as an open community survey. So for that statistically significant survey, we had 290 households participate. And for the open survey, we had 1,540 individuals that participated in that, as well as open house, several open house events. One at the Kite Fly event last summer at Frontier
Right.
Sports Complex. We had 2 at Fort Hill Activity Center, but 402 individuals participated in that process. So
So a lot of interest.
a lot of interest, and we found a lot of ways to reach out to community, as well as we checked all the boxes to ensure we had part of that extensive process to gather the input from the residents and make sure that when we got to the end of the indoor space rec plan, we had a very clear and concise roadmap and how do we proceed with the next steps.
Brad, what were some of those additional outcomes of the indoor recreation space needs assessment process?
Sure. Well, one of the outcomes was this very comprehensive report, an evaluation of both our existing facilities as well as Eric mentioned, similar providers and the community input that we received. That all came together in what is a large comprehensive report that's available on our website, but then we've also have a couple of other documents on our website, a shorter snapshot report that is very high level, as well as a presentation that was provided to our Board of Commissioners in fall of 2024, and I would encourage residents to take a look at those documents. Really, the initiative, though, brought to light 4 main areas of focus for the Park District, that being, one, to determine how to address the community's strong demands for indoor aquatics, particularly for swimming lessons, aquatic therapy, and fitness swimming, something that Eric mentioned as far as just the indoor aquatics component. Prioritizing the expansion of indoor recreation in South Naperville. We heard from South Naperville residents about the need for that indoor space there. We do currently lease some space, but it's very minimal at a facility on 95th Street, so expanding beyond what we currently have there.
Okay.
Recognizing that any future indoor programming needs to evolve and adapt, not only as national trends change, but also to address specifically the still growing and increasingly diverse population of Naperville. And then understanding that Naperville's older population is aging in place, ensuring that we're providing the types of programs and facilities that can support that demographic.
Was there anything that you learned that surprised you?
I wouldn't necessarily say a surprise, but it was the confirmation of the continued community interest for indoor aquatics.
Right.
And indoor aquatics is a recreation component that the district's been having the conversation with the community for many years. In fact, as we look back through old files, we can see this dates back to the early years of the Park District and how can we as a Park District provide for and meet the needs for indoor aquatics within the community. So as we worked through this process and spoke with residents and found and saw the survey results, there continues to be that community interest for indoor aquatic space and for that to be added to the community. And that's an area that we will need to focus on and determine how do we address.
Sure. Implementing the recommendations from the Indoor Recreation Space Needs Assessment is a major district goal for 2025, as you know, Eric. What are the next steps in the process that staff and the board will work toward accomplishing this year?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to talk a little bit about those recommendations, that will give us our clear marching orders as we make the implementation. But the first item would be to implement the recommendations for increased efficiencies for our existing facilities. And this is a great example, like for instance, at our Knocknalls Nature Center, as we provide programs, if we have an early childhood program, are we also maybe providing programs for adults while they drop off their child to enjoy while they're at the site? So,
Right.
Being efficient and that one-stop shop, and that's something we hear all the time at Fort Hill Activity Center, is that families like in a morning or afternoon can go there and drop off their child for a basketball program or gymnastics and actually take a fitness class for themselves. And that's what's so special about the facility. Another recommendation is to further engage community cultural groups to gain insight into recreational needs and further diversification of program offerings. This is something that Executive Director Wilson identified, and so that we really dig into that and make sure that we're providing those diverse programs. And sure, we do have that overall flexibility is part of that. Evaluate potential changes to the Alfred Rubin Riverwalk Community Center. As we know, this is a beautiful facility, but it has several challenges and limitations, like limitations regarding access, vehicular parking, program spaces. So we like to spend time and further connect with the users of that facility and better understand their interests and needs and how do we modify that in the future. Engage community leaders and partners to review the assessment conclusions and explore partnerships. We're always looking to partner as a district, and how can we, further do that? And in light of the findings of this assessment, this might bring up, further opportunities for discussion, collaboration, and possibly solutions to move forward to provide more recreational amenities for the community. Confirm options for the location of any future indoor recreation space and refine proposed amenities based on assessment results. So again, keep working through the findings and how do we best work with the community and touching base with the community. A lot of folks think when you complete a major initiative or plan like this, you put it on a shelf. And
Not the case.
Not the case. And so what's great about this, we have that clear and concise roadmap, as I mentioned, that we can continue on and further engage with our partners in the community to ensure that we are, in fact, heading in the right direction. And then eventually prepare options for development of additional indoor rec space through potential partnerships and or community support of a future bond referendum. So those are all part of the major recommendations of the assessment.
So in other words, although we've done a lot of work on this particular initiative, there's still a lot more to be done. It's kind of like peeling an onion.
Yeah.
There's
Just a
another
little-
layer. Yeah.
It's a stage in a process.
Right, exactly. It's be interesting to see how that all continues to unfold. Andrea, what do you expect from the assessment and the subsequent development of a strategy to help support your department's needs and ensure that you have the necessary space to accommodate the demand in the community?
Well, I think, first of all, I expected the assessment to provide us with clear guidance, which it definitely has done for now and for the future. With that being said, though, I do, as Eric mentioned, we have a lot of work yet to do. Currently, we have to look at the additional space that we have and work within those parameters, being more efficient with our schedules, adjusting them as needed, things like that. So, there's still a lot of work to be done. Also, continue to look for partnerships, as has been mentioned many times with all of us. And the Recreation Department, we do need to take a deeper dive. We need to get more specific, and we need to work with some of our, as the adult population we've already talked about, sit down really with them. We know there's passive and active recreation. What does that look like to them?
Right.
What are they looking for? So we have to get into that. And also, are there other programs out there yet to consider? We think we know, but we have a very diverse population, and there might be other things that we need to consider for the future.
Well, and we know
So-
being in recreation, there's always new trends. And not that we need to follow every trend, but at least have our ear to the ground and find out, how that pertains to the community.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like we've all said, we've repeated a lot of common themes here today, but it is the truth. We still have work to do. We have a great roadmap, and we just have to continue to follow up and follow through and see where it leads us.
We're just further emphasizing that because it's so important.
It
Because
is,
it really
absolutely,
is. Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. So this year, as if that everything we've talked about isn't enough, we're also going to be embarking upon an update to the district's strategic plan, which is one of our key overarching documents. How does the indoor recreation space needs assessment, Brad, relate to the strategic plan?
Well, the strategic plan really helps to set the direction of the district and provides a framework for making decisions, allocating resources, and achieving various goals. And with the indoor recreation space needs assessment being such a large initiative that the district undertook and that there is still that work that's ahead, I envision that as we're having those conversations in developing that strategic plan, there will be a number of initiatives, a number of goals that will be developed surrounding what we heard from the community
Right.
and how to move forward with addressing some of those indoor space challenges that we've had. So I expect that to be a very big part of just that overall conversation and focus of the district as we enter the strategic plan process.
Okay. Last question. I don't know who wants to answer this or if you each want to answer it. It's up to you. When and how can residents expect to hear more about the progress regarding the indoor recreation space needs assessment and what the future holds in that regard at the district?
Yeah. I'll start, and I guess first I would just, going back to what I mentioned earlier, encourage residents to look at the information that we have on our website, to be able to view the report, even if it's the snapshot report, to
snapshot's
provide
very
that
helpful.
high level.
Right.
It's a very short document, but it really gives you a good sense as to the process and then what we heard from the community and what those priorities are.
Right.
During the course of 2025, residents can expect to hear more about this plan, this process, and where the district's going. We fully expect to engage the community further to help refine and shape what that future indoor recreation space will look like. And I know that's something we will continue to communicate out in a number of ways.
Sure.
But we would also encourage residents to reach out anytime via our website. They can call the district and provide us with their thoughts or ask questions about the process or just space in general.
Right. Eric, Andrea, anything to add to that?
No, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part. We hear from residents all the time, and we just, as things change, because they may continue to change throughout
Sure.
the course of the year, things may pop up, and we just want them to share with us any information. Their input is valuable to us.
It definitely is. Well, looking toward the future and the next steps of the Indoor Recreation Space Initiative is a great way to close out this final episode of the 2025 State of the Park District podcast. This topic is an exclamation point, further emphasizing our organization's focus on continuous improvement and shaping a sustainable future for the benefit of the community. Thanks to my guests for joining me, and special thanks to our listeners of this series. If you're looking for additional Park Talk podcast content, you can find our monthly episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and SoundCloud, as well as at napervilleparks.org. Thank you for listening. The Naperville Park District's mission is to provide park and recreation experiences that promote healthy lives, healthy minds, and a healthy community. Park Talk Podcast is a production of the Naperville Park District.